Good morning, everyone. Boker Tov and Shabbat Shalom. In this week's time, the commandment to not add or subtract from any of the commandments. The Torah says, Lo sosifu v'lo sigru. Do not add to the number of commandments that God gave you, nor shall you detract from the commandments that God gave you. And Rashi explains, for example, if the Torah says you should bring 4 species on Sukkot, the lulav, etrog, hadassim, and aravot, don't add a 5th species. And the question is, we could understand why the Torah would say not to detract from the number of commandments, not to eliminate any of the commandments. But what's wrong with adding to the commandments? And the Dubna Maggid gives the following analogy. He said there was once a fellow who went to his neighbor. He said, I'm going away. Could you watch this silver Kiddush cup for me while I'm away? He said, sure. He came back 2 weeks later. He asked him for the Kiddush cup. And he hands him 2 Kiddush cups. He says, why are you giving me 2? He says, oh, while you're away, the Kiddush cup gave birth and had a baby, so I'm giving you both. The neighbor thinks my neighbor is absolutely insane. But if he thinks my Kiddush cup gave birth, fine, I'll take 2. Next month, he goes by his house. He says, listen, I'm going out of town. I have this set of silverware. Could you watch it for me? He says, sure. Comes back 2 weeks later to collect it. He says, he has 2 sets of silverware. He says, why 2? I gave you 1. He says, oh, while you're away, the silverware gave birth, and so I'm returning both. The neighbor thinks this guy's totally insane, but it's fine with me. And so he finds the most expensive item he has, a very expensive, beautiful silver candelabra. And he goes to his friend. He says, can you watch it for me? I'm going out of town. He says, sure. When he comes back, he says, where's my candelabra? My candelabra? He says, oh, I'm sorry, I have bad news to tell you. He says, what? He says, the candelabra died while you were away. Passed away. He said, that's crazy. That's insane. A candelabra cannot die, cannot pass away. And his friend says to him, the neighbor, tell me, if Kiddush cups can give birth and silverware can give birth, why can't a candelabra pass away? And therefore the Dubna Maggid says, God says, don't add or don't subtract. Because if you think you have the power to add to God's commandments, you'll also take the liberty to subtract and to eliminate from God's commandments. But perhaps there's a deeper message in this. And the message is a personal message. Sometimes we think we have to add or detract from ourselves in order to be complete. We feel if I only had this additional characteristic trait or feature or personality, or if I had this talent or this skill, then I would be perfect. Then I would be a complete mitzvah. Or if I detract, if I eliminated this aspect of my being, then I would be complete. And therefore the Torah says, I made the mitzvot perfect as they are. I don't need you to add or subtract. And I made you perfect the way you are. And you don't have to try to change who you are. You just have to work with what God gave you. All of your abilities, all of your talents. You don't have to try to pretend to be more than you are. You're enough just the way you are. And therefore don't detract from yourself. Don't put yourself down. Don't think you're not good enough. Just like God made the Torah and all the commandments are perfect as they are, God made you perfect for your mission, for your mitzvah, for your mission in this world. You have everything you need to accomplish what you need to accomplish. And therefore, embrace yourself as you are. Elevate yourself, refine yourself, maximize your potential. But remember, you only have to work with your potential, not with anyone else's. As the famous story of Zusha on his deathbed, who was weeping, and his student said, why are you crying? And he says, I fear the heavenly judgment when I arrive above. And they said to him, what are you afraid of? You lived a righteous life. And he said, I'll tell you, I fear not that in heaven they will ask me, why were you not as great as Moses? Because for that I have an answer. You didn't make me as great as Moses. Why weren't you as great as Abraham? I'm not as pious and as loving as Abraham. I didn't have that capacity. Why weren't you like Maimonides? I don't have the brilliance of Maimonides to be able to author such great works like Maimonides. I have answers for those questions. But if they ask me in heaven, if God says, Zusha, why weren't you Zusha? That's an answer I fear I don't have a good enough answer for. The only question we have to answer in life is, did we take everything God gave us, all our strengths, all our abilities, all our skills, all our talents, all our resources, all our goodness and love that we possess within ourselves, and did we maximize it without adding or subtracting to who we are, just loving ourselves the way we are, and utilizing everything we have and everything we are for the service of Hashem. Have a wonderful Shabbat Nachamu, the Shabbat of comfort and consolation. Look forward to seeing everyone in Shul.